C-SPAN's local content vehicles are traveling the country as we look at some of the most closely contested House races leading up to this November's midterm elections.
What's keeping you up at night these days?
All the money that the government's spending. I worry about what's going to happen to my grandchildren when they have to pay it all back.
We need to turn that around, no doubt about it. I'm a small business owner. I know we've got to have some fiscal discipline come to Washington, D.C. And I've got 3 kids, 8, 6, and 3, and I've got the same fear. Are we going to leave them with the same opportunities that you and I knew when we were growing up? And so, we need to make some changes.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right.
Thanks so much.
Right. Yeah, that's because I don't think we should raise taxes in this economy. Basically, it's mathematical. You got to pay more money into the system or pay less out. I think in an economy like this, raising taxes is generally going to be a bad idea.
So, by switching
better to work on the other side.
If times were better, you would be with the original position.
I would say, look, let's put everything on the table and solve the problem. But if you're going to have to start making trade-offs, you follow the order that I take. You look at the high end of the benefit side first before you look at raising taxes. And that's just a general philosophy I have. Can we work the spending side before working the tax side?
On the Democratic side, you have Dan Seals. This is his 3rd time running, so he's hoping that 3 times is a charm. He lost to Mark Kirk, who held this seat before, and is now running for Senate twice with 47% of the vote. He's from Wilmette. He used to work for GE Capital in the mortgage finance for commercial. And then on the right, you have Robert Dold, a political newcomer. He owns a pest control company in the Chicago area that's pretty well known, Rose Pest, for an exterminator company. He lives in Highland Park. They both have 3 kids, both make over $100,000 a year, and so they're both kind of the same economic class, but on 2 different sides of the political spectrum. It is a district that has traditionally sent a Republican to Congress and voted for a Democrat for president. That makes it seem to Democrats as if they can take this. This is one of only maybe 3 or 4 seats in the country that they literally see as a jump ball that they can get back from the Republicans, even though they know they're probably going to lose 10, 20, maybe even 30 or 40 seats across the country otherwise. So it stretches from the North Shore suburbs, very elite, very wealthy, very well-educated suburbs of Chicago, like Highland Park, Wilmette, Winnetka. It goes a little bit west into some more moderate-income suburbs, and then it stretches pretty far north up into some more struggling areas like Waukegan and North Chicago that are heavily Hispanic and largely poor.
Mostly in-town jobs, like here in Waukegan and just in town that's on the bus line transportation. No way. You will never get a job. A lot of people that out here that want to support their family instead of being on low income or going to get food stamps or things like that. It's not everybody that wants to just sit down and do nothing. It's a lot of us that want to work, that like the work, and want the help to get a job. So where do we start? We have no start nowhere. You got some programs that try to help you, and it's not successful. So we need something successful to help us support our families instead of being out here in poverty doing nothing.
In terms of the regulation, what will you do, or what kind of lead will you take in Congress to address this regulation that's forcing companies to go overseas and build plants in China or the Pacific Rim rather than here?
Yeah. I think the voters are most concerned, just like everywhere else in the country, but maybe a little bit more so, jobs. And then in addition to that, taxes, because you have part of the district that is really, really hit hard by unemployment. Unemployment's above 15% in some of these areas, and so they want to hear their candidates talking about how they're going to put them to work.
The biggest challenge for me in getting elected is making sure that people understand the differences between myself and my opponent. What I have found in talking to the voters is they want someone who can make the decisions to get our economy back on track, but they're not willing to compromise on their social values while they do so. So whereas my opponent wants to restrict a woman's reproductive rights, I want to protect them. My opponent wants to weaken environmental laws, I want to strengthen them. And as we heard here today, whereas my opponent wants to privatize Social Security, I think that would be a terrible gamble to make, and I'm not willing to add $2.2 trillion to the national debt.
And I think what we have is we have to put people back to work by creating an environment that allows the private sector to grow, expand, and create jobs, not the government. So there's going to be stark contrast between me and my opponent about what ways to do that. My opponent's been in line with Pelosi and the Democrats about growing the government as the answer. I don't believe that that's the case. I believe that there's a better way, and the better way is going to be empowering individuals and small businesses to grow, to invest in technology, equipment, and materials to expand their business.
Both candidates are trying to run into the middle, and they're running right into each other there. Dan Seals is going after Dold on social issues. He's trying to portray him as anti-abortion, which Dold says he is pro-choice. And he's trying to attack him on the environment and all these other hot-button issues that really trend well for Democrats in the district. And Robert Dold is going after Seals on taxes and budget. He's trying to really align him with the health care bill and some other big government spending. He's trying to portray him as wanting to raise taxes. And that's the other side of the district, the two components that make up, the majority of voters are socially moderate and so-called fiscal conservative. They need to really come apart from their parties, because the parties are not popular anywhere across the country, it seems. And Seals really needs to stand aside from the Democrats. Even though Obama's still polling about 50% in the district, I think voters are not very interested in making sure that there is a Democratic-controlled Congress or necessarily a Republican-controlled Congress. So they really need to portray themselves as independents and have voters buy that. I mean, both taglines for both campaigns really harp on the independent. I believe last time in 2008, $10 million or more was spent on both sides. The candidates themselves are inevitable to raise between $2 and $4 million, maybe more. But also you're going to have a lot of interest groups playing here, because this is a key place where Democrats think they can take over the Republican, at least take a Republican seat. And so you're going to see the DCCC, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, and the Republican Congressional Campaign Committee dumping $1, $2, $3 million into this race in TV ads. It's very expensive to buy ads in the Chicago market, and they're going to put their chips down.
C-SPAN's local content vehicles are traveling the country as we look at some of the most closely contested House races leading up to this November's midterm elections. For more information on what the local content vehicles are up to this election season, visit our website, cspan.org/LCV.